Feet and Other Stories. Written by Jan Mark. Chapter 1. Feet. Unlike the centre court at Wimbledon, the centre court at our school is the one nobody wants to play on. It is made of asphalt and has dents in it, like Ryvita. All the other courts are grass, out in the sun. Centre court is between the science block and the canteen, and when there is a governors' meeting, the governors use it as a car park. The sun only shines on centre court at noon in June, and there is green algae growing around the edges. When I volunteered to be an umpire at the annual tennis tournament, I might have known that I was going to end up on centre court. "You'd better go on centre court," said Mr. Evans, "as it's your first time. It won't matter so much if you make mistakes." I love Mr. Evans. He is so tactful, and he looks like an orangutan in his tracksuit. I believe myself that he swings from the pipes in the changing room, but I haven't personally observed this, you understand. He just looks as if he might enjoy swinging from things. He has very long arms. Probably he can peel bananas with his toes, which have little tufts of hair on like beard transplants. I saw them once. So I was sitting up in my umpire's chair, just like Wimbledon, with an official school pencil and a pad of scorecards, and I wasn't making any mistakes. This was mainly because they were all first-round matches, the 6-love kind, to get rid of the worst players. All my matches were ladies' doubles, which is what you call the 5th and 6th year girls when they are playing tennis, although not at any other time. We didn't get any spectators except some first-year boys who came to look at the legs and things, and Mr. Evans on and off, who was probably there for the same reason. All the men's matches were on the grass courts, naturally, so I didn't see anything I wanted to see, which was Michael Collier. I suppose it was the thought of umpiring Collier that made me put my name down in the first place, before I remembered about ending up in centre court. I could only hope that I'd be finished in time for the men's final, so that I could go and watch it, because definitely Collier would be in the final. People said that it was hardly worth his while playing, really. Why didn't they just give him the trophy and have done with it? Looking back, I dare say that's what he thought too. So anyway, I got rid of all my ladies' doubles and sat around waiting for a mixed doubles. It was cold and windy on centre court, since it wasn't noon in June, and I wished I had worn a sweater instead of trying to look attractive sort of in short sleeves. Sort of is right. That kind of thing doesn't fool anyone. I had these sandals too, which let the draft in something rotten. I should have worn wellies. No one would have noticed. Nobody looks at feet. After the mixed doubles, which was a fiasco, I thought of going in to get a hot drink. Tea or coffee or just boiling water would have done, when I noticed this thing coming down the tram lines and trying to walk on one leg like Richard III, only all in white. Richard the Bride. It was using a tennis racket head down as a walking stick, which is not done, like cheating at cards. No gentleman would do this to his tennis racket. This is no gentleman. "Oh," said this Richard III person, "me Carson, you Jane." This does not quite qualify as pun of the week, because he is Carson and I am Jane. He is Alan Carson from the sixth form, only he's at Oxford now. And he would not know me from Adam, only he is a neighbour and used to babysit with me once. This is humiliating and I don't tell people. Carson is known to do a number of strange things, and walking on one leg may be one of them for all I know, so I do not remark on it. "Hello, Carson," I said very coolly. I was past sounding warm anyway. "Where are you going?" Carson sits down on the stacking chair at the foot of my ladder. "I'm going to get changed," he says. "Did you lose your match?" I say tactfully like Mr. Evans. I'm surprised because he is next most likely after Collier to be in the final. "No, I won," says Carson. "But it was a Pyrrhic victory," and he starts wanging the net post with his tennis racket, boing boing. This is not good for it either, I should think. I have heard about Pyrrhic victories, but I do not know what they are. "What's a Pyrrhic victory?" I said. "One you can do without," said Carson. "Named after King Pyrrhus of Epirus, who remarked after beating the Romans in a battle, 'One more win like this and we've had it,' on account of the Romans badly chewing up his army." "Oh," I said, "and did he get another win?" "Yes," said Carson. "But by then he got done over at the Battle of Beneventum by Curius Dentatus, the famous Roman general with funny teeth. Now I just knocked spots off Pete Bolbin in the quarter-final, and I'm running up to the net to thank him for a jolly good game, old boy, when I turned my ankle and fall flat on my back. It's a good thing," he added thoughtfully, "that I didn't get as far as the net. because then I should have jumped over it and then fallen flat on my back. I could see his point. That's the kind of thing that happens to me. I should have met Mick Collier in the semi-final, said Carson. Now he'll have a walkover. Which should suit him. He doesn't care where he puts his feet. Who will he play in the final, I say, terribly pleased for Collier. As well as being sorry for Carson, whose ankle is definitely swelling, as even I can see without my glasses, which I do not wear in between matches, although everyone can see I wear them, because of the red mark across my nose. Mills or McGarity, says Carson. Mills has currently beaten McGarity, and then Collier will beat Mills, to pulp, and no one will be surprised. I don't know why we bother, he says tiredly. It was a foregone conclusion. And he limps away, dragging his injured foot, and not even trying to be funny about it, because it obviously hurts like hell. Then it started to rain. Everybody came and sheltered in the canteen and griped, especially Mills and McGarity. Especially Mills, who was within an inch of winning and wanted to get that over and have a crack at Collier, who was a more worthy opponent. McGarity heard all this and looked as if he would like to give Mills a dead leg, or possibly a dead head. Then it stops raining, and Mr. Evans, the games master, and Miss Sylvia Truman, who was our lady games master, go out and skid about in the grass courts to see if they're safe. They are not. Even then I do not realise what's going to happen, because Collier comes over to the dark corner, where I am skulking with my cold, spotty arms, and starts talking to me. Jane Turner, isn't it? He says. He must have asked somebody, because he couldn't possibly know otherwise. I was only a fourth year then, and I say, yes. And he says, I see you every day on the bus, don't I? And I say, yes, although I travel downstairs and he travels up. I'm on the smokers, although of course he doesn't smoke himself because of his athlete's lungs. And he says, you're an umpire today, aren't you? And I say, yes. And he says, do you play? And I say, yes, which I do, and not badly. But I don't go in for tournaments because people watch, and if I was being watched, I would foul it up. We have a court at home, he says, which I know because he is a near neighbour, like Carson, although me and Carson live on the Gleeblands estate, and the Colliers live in the old rectory. And then he says, you ought to come over and play sometime. And I can't believe this, but I say, yes. Yes, please, yes, I'd like that, and I still don't believe it. And he says, bring your cousin and make up a foursome. It was your cousin who was sitting next to you, wasn't it, on the bus? And I know he must have been asking about me, because my cousin Dawn is only staying with us for a week. And I say, yes, and he says, come on Friday then. And I say, yes, again. And I wonder how I can last out till Friday evening. It's only 3:15 on Wednesday. And then Mr. Evans and Miss Sylvia Truman come in from skidding about, and Mr. Evans, finalist in the All England Anthropoid Ape Championship, says, the grass is kaput. We'll have to finish up on centre court. Come on, Collier, come on, Mills. And McGarity says, Mills hasn't beaten me yet, sir. And Sir says, oh well, and doesn't say it's a foregone conclusion. And Miss Sylvia Truman says, well, hurry up and finish him off, Mills, in a voice that McGarity isn't supposed to hear, but does. If Miss Sylvia Truman was a man instead of just looking like one, McGarity would take her apart, but doesn't because she isn't. Also, she's much bigger than McGarity. And Sir says, where's the umpire? And I say, I am. And Sir says, can you manage? And I say, I haven't made any mistakes yet. But it's the final, says fiery Fred Truman, who thinks I'm an imbecile. I have heard her. But I say I can manage, and I'm desperate to do it because of Collier playing. And perhaps Sir has been fortifying himself with the flat bottle he thinks we don't know about, but which we can see the outline of in his hip pocket, because he says, all right, Jane, and I can't believe it. But anyway, we all go out to the damp green canyon that is centre court, and I go up my ladder, and Mills finishes off McGarity, love, 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 and still I don't make any mistakes. And then suddenly everybody is there to watch because it is Mills versus Collier, and we all want/know that Collier will win. Collier comes, takes off his sweater, and hangs it on the rung of my chair and says, don't be too hard on me, Jane, with that smile that would make you love him even if you didn't like him. And I say, I've got to be impartial, and he smiles. And I wish I didn't have to be impartial, and I'm afraid that I won't be impartial. And he says, I won't hold it against you, Jane. And he says, don't forget Friday. I say, I won't forget Friday, as loudly as I can, so as many people as possible will hear, which they do. You can see them being surprised all round the court. And don't forget your cousin, he says. And I say, oh, she's going home on Thursday morning. Some other time then, he says. No, I said, I can come on Friday. But he was already walking onto the court, and he just looked over his shoulder and said, no, it doesn't matter. And all around the court you can see people not being surprised. And I was up there on that lousy, stinking, bloody ladder, and everybody could see me. I thought I was going to cry, and spent a long time putting my glasses on. Collier and Mills began to knock up, and I got out the pencil and the scorecards, and broke the point off the pencil. I didn't have another one. I didn't want to show my face asking anybody to lend me one. So I had to bite the wood away from the lead, and of course didn't have a proper point, and made 2 lines instead of 1, and gritty. And then I remembered that I had to start them off, so I said, "Play please, Collier to serve." He'd won the toss, naturally. My voice had gone woolly and my glasses had steamed over, and I was sure people were laughing, even if they weren't. Then I heard this voice down by my feet saying, "Let him get on with it. If he won't play with you on Friday, he can play with himself," which kind of remark would normally make me go red, only I was red already. I looked down and there was Carson, looking not at all well because of his foot, probably, but he gave me an evil wink, and I remembered he was sometimes a very kind person, really. I remembered he sometimes gave me a glass of beer when he was babysitting. I was only 11 then when he babysat. My mother was fussy about leaving us, and there was my baby brother as well. He wasn't really sitting with me. So I smiled, and he said, "Watch the court, for God's sake, they've started," and they had. "That's the point to Collier," he said. I marked it down and dared not take my eyes off court after that, even to thank him. I looked down again when they changed ends and Carson had gone. I asked him later where he'd gone to, and he said he went to throw up. I hope all this doesn't make Carson sound too coarse. He was in great pain. It turned out he had broken a bone in his foot, but we didn't know that then. There are a lot of bones in the foot, although you think of it as being solid, down to the toes at any rate. Carson wasn't having it all his own way, hooray, hooray. Mills was very good too, and the first fit went to a tie-break. I still wasn't making any mistakes. But when they came off the court after the tie-break, which Collier won, and did Wimbledon-y things with towels and a bit of swigging and spitting, he kept not looking at me. I mean, you could definitely see him not looking at me. Everybody could see him not looking at me, remembering what he'd said about Friday, and what I'd said about Friday as loudly as I could. I was nearly crying again. What with that and the state of the official school pencil, the scorecard began to be in a bit of a mess, and I suddenly realised I was putting Collier's points in the wrong line. And of course I called out, "Advantage Mills," where it should have been 40-30 to Collier, and he yelled at me to look at what I was doing. You don't argue with the umpire. You certainly don't yell at the umpire, but he did. I know I was wrong, but he didn't have to yell. I kept thinking about him yelling and about Friday, and in the next game I made the same mistake again, and he was saying, "That's all I need, a cross-eyed umpire. There's 800 people in the school, can't we find one with 20/20 vision?" If Fiery Fred or Orang Evans had heard, he might not have, but he was up by the net and facing away from them. He got worse and worse, abusive. Then Mills won the next game without any help from me, and I thought, at least he's not having another walkover. I know about what Carson said. He doesn't care where he puts his feet. And of course after that, I couldn't help looking at his feet, and Carson was right. He didn't care where he put them. He had this very fantastic serve that went up about 10 yards before he hit the ball, but his toes were over the baseline 3 times out of 5. I don't know why nobody noticed. I suppose they were all watching the fantastic 10-yard service, and anyway, nobody looks at feet. At first I forgot this had anything to do with me. When I did remember, I couldn't bear to do anything about it at first. And it was Mills who was serving, and I had time to think. I thought, why should he get away with it? Then I thought, he gets away with everything. And I realised Carson probably hadn't been talking about real feet, but feet was all I could think of. Collier served. His feet were not where they should have been. 15 love. I thought, I'll give you one more chance, because he was playing so well and I didn't want to spoil that fantastic service. But he had his chance and did it again. It was a beautiful shot, an ace, right down the centre line, and Mills never got near it. I said, "Foot fault." There was a sort of mumbling noise from everyone watching, and Collier scowled, but he had to play the second service. Mills tipped it back over the net and Collier never got near it. 15 all. Foot fault. He was going to argue, but of course he couldn't, because feet was not what he looked at when he was serving. 15-30. His second service wasn't very good, really. Foot fault. 15-40. And then he did begin to look, and watching his feet he had to stop watching the ball, and all sorts of things began to happen to his service. Mills won that set. "What the hell are you playing at, Turner?" said Collier when they came off court, and he called me a vindictive little cow while he was toweling and spitting, but honestly, I never called foot fault if it wasn't one. They went back for the third set, and it was Collier's service. He glared at me like he had death row eyeballs and tossed up the fur ball, and looked up, and looked down at his feet, and looked up again, but it was too late, and the ball came straight down and bounced and rolled away into the crowd. So he served again, looked up, looked down, and tried to move back, and trod on his own foot and fell over. People laughed. A laugh sounds terrible on centre court with all those walls to bounce off. Some of the algae had transferred itself to his shorts. By now everybody was looking at his feet. He served a double fault. "So who's winning?" said Alan Carson, back again, and now looking greener than Collier's shorts. I knew he would understand, because he had come back instead of going home to pass out, which is what he should have been doing. "I am," I said miserably. "2 Pyrrhic victories in one afternoon," said Alan. "There must be some kind of record." "It must be," I said. "It's got a hole in it."